Now I'm very excited to welcome back an amazing handicapper, great friend of the show, and Mr. Brian Edwards from Major Wager and VegasInsider.com. You can follow Brian at VegasBEdwards. Brian, welcome back to the madness, my man. How's the first weekend treating you?
It treated me well. I mean, I was way up and got a little too aggressive on Florida, which obviously did not come through. Although they teased me late. Like we were going to have 2 8-point leads there in the final, 90 seconds, but did not get there. And I just got way over, and I kind of went for the jugular. I mean, then I came out ahead for the week. I mean, the rest of my day was pretty much perfect. I just kind of lost my stomach for stressing and throwing a big amount. But I mean, I hit Kentucky, I hit Bama, I hit Colorado State. I might have been perfect. I think I was perfect the rest of the day. No, I had a little bit on Alabama game over, so I lost that. But
that was
it was a good week, but not as good as the prior week, which was amazing. It's been a good season, but man, I got too aggressive on the Gators Sunday, unfortunately.
Dude, I know you're feeling. I mean, I also bet their team. I'm guessing. I think I read your Major Wager, and you also were on the team total over. And it's just, I didn't quite get there. Just very sluggish start to the Gators. And it's funny. I lost 2 in a row on them because I had the minus 28.5 on Norfolk State. And by halftime, you're like, oh, here we go. Let's start watching the other games. And then you're like, what the fuck just happened?
Right.
And I with like a minute before the half. That's really when they scored like 9, 11 points, and literally just. I don't know. Florida just kind of went to sleep a little bit, but that's life. And that's life sometimes. I was on the wrong side of the Tennessee at the first game. I laid the points, and then the second game, I kind of ignored it. Or maybe I even went against them a little with UCLA, and then they blow out UCLA. UCLA looked worse than Wofford. My weekend was – I finally got some back on Sunday, but my first day was bad. The next 2 days were kind of in the middle. Then I got some back on Sunday. But I'm down myself for the first weekend, which kind of sucks. But I'll tell you this, man, a lot of those kind of like meddling dogs that I thought would be more meddling, like the high points out there, the second week with Drake, I thought Drake would keep it a little closer. 8.5, 9 points just did not come through, but that's life, my man. The news is we have a lot more to talk about and a lot more fun to cover. A lot of people are talking like, the NCAA tournament, it played out very chalky. I mean, what are your thoughts on how it played out?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in terms of the outright upsets, there were just not very many of them. And, the only 4 conferences represented in the Final Four, what was the least? I think it was 7. And that was, obviously that's by 3 conferences. I mean, we're missing the little man. We're missing the little man, and I hope it's not a sign of things to come with NIL and the portal and what have you. Hopefully not, but NCAA is so just atrocious at everything they do. They've got to get in there and get some things figured out in terms of some sort of salary cap or something, some sort of regulation. I mean, they only had like 5 years to prepare for this, and they didn't.
I mean, they're lethargic. They're scared to control anything because then it's going to be on them when people break rules, and then they're going to be embarrassed. It's almost like they want to disassociate themselves from the conferences themselves, and it's just a mess, and they don't care. The thing is, like, there's the good and the bad. The bad is kind of outweighing the good, especially in college football when you come to seeing when the portal's open during the freaking bowls and playoffs. What does that mean? But
same with this week. But portal open Monday.
Yep.
With this week too.
Yeah, it's just crazy. It does not need to open in the middle of March. I understand the argument for school year, but that's still a stupid argument. It's like, yeah, they hear about school, dude. And you can register late and normal. Like I can register for classes in February if you want. Get started late. There's just no excuse for some of this stuff. But the good thing it's doing is keeping some of the players around. Like Janai Broom, would he still be there? Or would he have tried to get to make some money? It's keeping the good players around. But I don't know how they would do a salary cap because then you invite other illegal stuff to happen. But I don't know. I think that
Right.
just up the penalties, dude, up the penalties. It's like something does have to be done eventually. I do like players getting some money for the hard work they put in, though. Yeah, dude, like UC San Diego was such a trendy pick for people, and I didn't bet that one. I was kind of on both sides, kind of thinking him and Hahn. But a lot of those mid-sized dogs, Liberty goes and lays a massive egg. It's just kind of those points those ones that got screwed over. I would have had a blast on Monday if the 7.5 came through in New Mexico State. It would have been up to double digits then for the unit size, right? But it wasn't because they got reffed out of the game completely. It's like, yeah, that doesn't help Cinderellas when that. I don't know if you watched Michigan State versus New Mexico, but it was just a giant piece of horrible officiating, to make them win the game, I thought.
I saw Donovan Dent enter the portal today, which is a huge loss for the Lobos. I was not focused on that game. I'm trying to remember what time slot that was in. Was that Friday night?
It was Friday.
No, it was Saturday.
It was Sunday night. Sunday night.
Sunday night. Yeah. No,
I mean, there's some
Ole
bigger
Miss
games on. Yeah, Ole Miss. That game was over in the first half, dude. I was on Ole Miss plus the points and the money line. That was one of my highlights of Sunday, my man.
So was I. Yeah, I had Arkansas money line both games, and I had Ole Miss on Sunday. Yeah, I forgot to say that because I had Kentucky, Bama. That was another winner I had on Sunday. Yeah, Sunday. Like if I just my money management was brutal with the Gators early in the day. I should have cleaned house on Sunday in terms of my record, but didn't happen. Doggone it. Oh, well.
Yeah, well, that's all right. We got more to talk about here. What about that? Well, I'm curious about the Big Ten. It's funny. They went. You got the ACC, and their total was 6.5 wins. That means you're either counting North Carolina's play-in game, and Duke's got.
It does count, right? It does. It does count toward the prop bets, though, doesn't it? I'm asking.
I don't know. I think it does for most books, but you better read up on that.
Sure.
Because that means if Duke wins it, they will go over because of the play-in game, but they literally need to win it now. And then you have the Big Ten just barely skating over 11.5. And the funny thing about it, I don't know if they're going to get more wins. It was also that poorly officiated Michigan State game that did that, and the Maryland last shot, my man. And what's funny about that? Everyone crying about the travel. Are you freaking kidding me? I cried about traveling back in 2000s, dude. Like, it's well accepted that these players take the gather step, and hell, in the NBA, you can add another 2 gather steps before that's ever going to get called. It's like, dude, you're complaining about a travel. I bet I can show you 20 spots in that game where there was 3 steps or whatever for any of these layups. I'm like, are you serious? So don't get me wrong. The NCAA needs to define it properly, which causes more reason. I mean, if they called that travel, you'd be like, oh, that was a travel. And then people are like, why you call that? You need it defined more, but it was just funny to see more controversy over that.
Yeah. You're talking about the Maryland game winner?
Yeah.
Clean.
Awesome shot by the kid. And I would never call that a travel with the way that's officiated, because that's the norm. You wouldn't call that a travel, an extra step or 2 maybe, but dude, not that. That is a complete common basketball play that happens all the freaking time. It's almost like that pass interference you called when they're tugging each other's jerseys all game in the last couple Super Bowls. It's like you do not call that. So let's move on to some of these other tournaments, man. Are you planning on betting like any NIT, CBI, or CBC games?
So I normally do, and I started, was it Monday or Tuesday of last week with Georgia Tech, and they absolutely, it was dead on arrival. And that's the only game I've played in the NIT. Now, I'll definitely play the tournament in Vegas next week. I'll definitely be getting involved there. But I have not been playing the NIT since that Georgia Tech L, which is very unusual for me. But there's just not a whole lot of teams in it that I have, a ton of familiarity with. Now, I've had the Mocs of Chattanooga a few times. So I'm not planning on playing that game tonight, but I would lean their way against Bradley.
A lot of points for the Mocs have been playing well. I looked at that one. Bradley scared me a little bit because they destroyed somebody who was on George Mason. I picked George Mason to win it all, and Bradley get their butts. So I was kind of like, still scared off that one. And I agree. I was leaning the Mocs too. I'm going to grab Kent State plus 5.5 tomorrow against Loyola, who's not a deep team at all this year with all their injuries. So I grabbed Kent State. But yeah, I'm playing a few games. I just lost on Queens, but I have a win on Queens from the night before. So I'm definitely going to be playing all these games myself throughout the whole thing. It's not just about the big teams. You can find some value maybe in the smaller conferences that are smaller tournaments that have been ignored. So that's what I'm doing. Well, going back to the Big Ten, does any of these Big Ten teams advance, my man? Do you think any of them get by?
Well, Sparty, I think, obviously has the best chance, and I think Auburn's very gettable right now. I don't think Michigan's got the firepower to do it though. No, I'm not saying I'm certainly not laying the points with Auburn. I had Creighton the other night, unfortunately. Loved that play. And it was great. It looked great for a while. It kind of ran out of gas there down the stretch, unfortunately.
I had the first half on Creighton too, because thank God
I did too.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but they ran out of gas just like they did against St. John's.
Yeah, I actually had a money line in the first half as well for a little plus 215, but I had way more on them catching 9. So that game was an L. But I don't. I give Sparty a chance to get the Final Four. I think Maryland's going to be toast. But as your listeners know, I may be a little biased there. I haven't played Purdue +8 because the Bear, Chris Felica, threw out a stat that just grossed me out about Purdue in Sweet 16 games recently. I remember they won that thriller against Tennessee about 5 years back with that Admiral Schofield team for the Vols. But Purdue's has not been very good. I forget the tweet that Felica had the other day that it was just, it was brutal. It just scared me away from Purdue. I was kind of leaning Purdue. But I think Purdue will, first off, I think if Purdue plays like they played, was that Saturday? Yeah, first game Saturday afternoon. They play like that. They'll have a chance against Houston. I don't look at Houston as formidable, I think, as a lot of others do. I think at some point, and maybe even Friday night, they're just lack of offense. Them in Tennessee, man, they just go through some offensive droughts that I don't think have much staying power this time of year.
Yeah. I mean, I do worry about them, and I think their bracket's the most, I guess, the most challenging to the 1 seed. I'm not going to, even though Alabama is Alabama, I just think by the way Houston plays the game, they're going to be more threatened by a Kentucky or a Tennessee. If they get by Purdue too, then they're going to be threatened. Then Duke would be threatened against Alabama. And Texas Tech would threaten Florida, and obviously whoever Michigan State or Ole Miss threatens Auburn. So I agree with that. I think they're probably the most vulnerable number 1 seed, but that's good for my parlays because they're last. I think they're the last game that plays. But the bad news also for Houston is that every team that's going to be in this side is pretty close fan base wise. Houston is a ways away. Purdue's 60 miles away from Indianapolis. And then you have Tennessee that's maybe like 300 miles and then I believe 150 miles ish for Kentucky from
Rutgers. Doesn't matter how far Kentucky is, they'll be there.
Exactly, but that just makes it even more. It's just like you could be 600 miles away and Kentucky fans will be there, but now that's 150 miles away. They're going to bring their sisters with them. So, it's just, I think that makes that side definitely more vulnerable. Before we get into these games, I know you're biased, but after what we saw in that second half against Norfolk State and against UConn, who's better, Florida or Duke?
Florida. I think that this game against UConn will do Florida well. When they were in repeat mode in 2007, they actually trailed Purdue by 7 about maybe like around the under 12 timeout. And ended up being good for them, and nobody really seriously challenged them the rest of the way. I think Gavin that close one, maybe get them refocused a little bit. I think it'll end up being good for them. And yes, I would love Florida underdog to Duke. That would be so
would
funny.
be. They would be an underdog.
I hope so.
Because the nation,
I hope so.
The Cappers and the Duke, they have Duke as their one team, and I keep flipping back and forth. When I filled my bracket out a week ago, I have Florida as my best team, but they just haven't looked so good right now. So I flip it back to Duke. But maybe after tomorrow, maybe in 2 days, I'll flip it back. I'm allowed to change this. I'm hoping Florida wins because Florida, it's my main bracket. I put Florida against Duke and Florida winning, but you never know what's going to happen when it comes up to then. You can get another injury, and I just right now I just think Duke's a little playing better. So, but that's going to kind of come into some of the questions I have for these wonderful games that we're going to talk about. So let's get into them then. And right now we'll start with Thursday. And what's nice is that you don't have to take the whole damn day off work. These games can start a little bit later. Thursday, BYU versus Alabama. I put -5, but this thing's kind of moving around. I think on DraftKings it's now 5.5. I'm gonna still call it 5 because you can find 5s. Totals 175.5 at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. So what you got for this one?
Yeah, I'm going with Alabama. I got 4.5. I still like it at 5. Now, once you get to 5.5 or north of that, starting to lose a little interest in it. But look, I think Alabama was always fine. I think their fan base was up in arms with the 2-game losing streak against Florida at home, and then at Tennessee when the Vols got some fortunate whistles down the stretch, and and then Florida blows them out in at the SEC tournament, and the fan base was just going nuts. But I mean, you look at the Alabama's losses this year. All right, they lost at Purdue, a Sweet 16 team. They lost by 2 to Oregon in Vegas after they had beaten Illinois and Birmingham by 13, and then beaten Houston in overtime in Vegas, and then beat Rutgers in Vegas, and had a couple nights off. And, I think they got a little satisfied. They got their huge win against Houston on a neutral that they knew would be great for them. And just, lost by 2 to Oregon. Then they lost at home to Ole Miss, another Sweet 16 team. They lost at home to Auburn, another Sweet 16 team. They lost at Missouri, where only Texas A&M won outright this year. They lost at Tennessee at the buzzer. Again, they got hosed by the refs. And then they lost twice to Florida. I mean, those are their losses this year. I mean, they were always okay. I think Oates, kind of slumping going into the tournament a second straight year. Everybody doubting him. And he's proven what an elite coach he is and what an elite program Alabama is. And look, I like this BYU team a lot. And they are dangerous. But they're going to have to shoot a really high percentage to win this game, in my opinion. And look, if it's just if Alabama's got a lead, 1 or 2 possessions down the stretch, Mark Sears is going to be automatic at the free throw line for the cover. But I really don't think it'll come down to that. I think Alabama's going to win by 8 to 12. I like Bama laying the points, and I certainly like them in a money line parlay with the Gators, which should be about -120.
All right. Well, there you go. Money line with the Gators, back-to-back games. I don't know why everyone's liking BYU so much, and people are making a case for it, and I disagree with the case, Brian. You have to love this matchup between Mawab Mag for BYU and Cliff Omoyuri for Alabama, because they both played at Rutgers last, 4 or 5 years together, which is actually really cool. I don't hear anybody talking about that. I think that's fun, but I think the luck's going to run out for BYU here a little bit. They shot very well against Wisconsin, and until the very end, they almost choked the game away. Actually, I thought Wisconsin could not rebound. Okay, so that's the thing. Wisconsin was out rebounded 49 to 32, and ended up losing by 2 points. I mean, do you think the big guys, the 3, 6, 11 guys on Bama is going to get out rebounded? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think that's where BYU is going to be very vulnerable. I think that Bama's guards can run with BYU's high ball screens. And I think that's where they're going to stop the 3 points. the big difference is the huge inside game that Alabama has over Wisconsin, right? And I think that this spread is low. I laid 4.5 as well, Brian. I think that Alabama can win this walking away again. Alabama's got a fine defense for the speed they play. How often do you see a team number 1 in pace that also has a top 24 defense on KenPom? It's not too often where you see something like that. The Tides are going to have advantages from deep, mid-range, near the rim, lay the points. I like it more than 4.5 too. 5.5. It's kind of 5 to 5. That's what I'm saying. So we are on board together with that one. And you kind of gave your other side of the parlay on this one. Maryland versus Florida. Florida minus 6.5 actually. Total is 154.5 at the Chase Center and San Francisco. So what are your thoughts on this one? And by the way, this spread went this number went up to 157.5. Holy crap. Brian Edwards must have bet this one. And move the line 3 points here, Brian. What's up with this game?
Well, I like Florida. I like them laying the points. I know I mentioned them in a money line parlay. I'll just point out the over has hit in 9 straight for the Gators, although it was really fortunate to get there a pretty bad beat for underbackers the other day. I mean, I was glad I wasn't on that under. Wow. Yeah, that was tough for underbackers with the Florida UConn game. But I like Florida here. Again, I think the tough test they got from UConn, I think that'll make them stronger and more dangerous moving forward. And Florida, even with the non-cover to UConn, they are still 10-2 against the spread in 12 games as a single-digit favorite this year. They're on an 8-game winning streak, 6-2 against the spread in that stretch. 6 of those 8 wins by 9 or more. The Gators have 27 wins by at least 11 points this season. In the last 15 games, they're 14-1 straight up. 12-3 ATS. And in terms of teams that are in the Sweet 16 right now that are still alive, the Gators have had 9 games against teams that are still alive. 7-2, both straight up and against the spread in those games, and winning by 8 or more in 6 of those. I think Walter Clayton's going to be the best player on the court. His last 3 NCAA tournament games, counting the Colorado game last year, 13 of 27 from three-point land. I like the Gators laying the points to Maryland. Although I will point out, I'm pretty sure I don't think Maryland's lost by more than 6 all year. I'm pretty sure that's what I saw when I was going through, or I'm going through it again right now. Yeah, they have not lost by more than 6 all year. So that's kind of scary. But I don't think they've played.
They haven't played a top 10 team. I guess Michigan State, but that was at home where they lost by 3. I mean, flip it, they lose by 5, but by like 7 or 8 if you're adding flipping home court. There's also a last-second shot. No, you're right. They haven't lost by a lot of points, but I mean, some of these losses are pretty ugly on Washington. Marquette lost, didn't age so well at home. That was a long time ago, though. Northwestern didn't age well. Ohio State, yeah, they play close games, but man, I mean, I didn't have to worry about going against you on this one because I laid 5.5 Sunday as soon as the Lions came out with Florida. I like 6.5.
Oh wow, you got 5.5. That a boy.
Yeah, I laid like a little extra juice, minus 18, I think, minus 118. But you know what? I was like, I'd rather have the points in the back pocket in these closer games. And if this way it said, this Maryland team is good and they're complete, but dude, they have no bench. They have no bench, and they haven't had to worry about the bench until now. They're not going to get this out of this Florida game without being in foul trouble. Florida, I think what you said there said it all, that this was a perfect scare for them against UConn, but they still pulled it out because that's how complete of a team they are, And so I think that the next time is the time you really lay on them again, and that's what we're doing here. The Gators are just better by 10 points. They are. They're better than Maryland by 10 points. They're better than probably every Big Ten team by 10 points, in my opinion. I think Duke's in the same bucket as that. I still stand by my statement that I don't believe any Big Ten team should have been a 1 or a 2 seed this year. And it sucks to say that as a Big Ten fan, but I just see how I see it, Maryland's inconsistent, though. You know, and if they don't catch a lead, once they go down, I don't see how they're coming back. And like I said, once the fouls kick in, they're going to be in a heck of a lot of trouble. Florida's just too big all around. I laid the points, -6.5, I think is safe as well. One of my bigger plays for 2.5 stars, Brian. So we're on the same boat here. Arizona versus Duke. Duke -9.5, I believe, unless that moved. Everything I wrote down this morning has moved a little bit. Total 153.5. This is at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, where I hear buckets come nicely. I hear that the rims are nice over there. My question is, like, when is Duke gonna have a bad game? You know,
Right.
I toyed with Baylor plus 12.5. They were also fouled a lot. Baylor was put into a lot of trouble there. But it's also Duke. I mean, when is Duke going to play bad? Ever since Clemson, they haven't played bad. You know, they haven't. Even when the flag went out, of the tournament, they still beat Tech by 8 points. They still beat North Carolina, where they almost choked the game away, and they come back, and they win at the end. It's just I'm waiting for a bad game with flag. It hasn't happened since Clemson on February 8th. Is it going to happen? It's hard to predict that. But right now, I think the safest play is the over, Brian. I took the over. It's a larger play for me, and I think it's going to move a lot like Florida game did. Now, I know Duke's got the great defense too, but I don't think it's going to matter because Arizona pushes pace, man. They're a top pace team. And when Arizona steps up against better competition, whether it's offense or defensively, they still score their points. Like, for example, Arizona 87-83 against Oregon. This is a weird Oregon, slower, medium-paced team. They scored 93 against Akron. They could have scored over 100. It's only when they play a team like Houston where they tend to go under. They score 88 against Kansas. They score 86 against Penn State. I think that they're going to get 75 points. All I need from Duke is 78 points to go over this total, 79 points, something like that. So I took over 152.5. It's at 153.5, and I like the over still, Brian. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not against the over there. I kind of lean that way. I haven't gotten involved with this game yet. I mean, you're right about how Duke's played since the Clemson loss. They've won 13 in a row, 10-3 against the spread, 10-2 against the spread the last 12, and 11 of the 13 wins by 11 or more. And the only 2 that weren't by 11 were when flag was out. He was out, whatever, the second half and parts of the first half against Georgia Tech. The over's on a 9-3 run for Duke. As for Arizona, they've been an underdog 8 times, 3-5, both straight up and ATS. And these teams played back in November at Zona. And Duke won 69-55 as a 2-point dog. It went under 162. Flag had 24-7-3. Caleb Love had an off game, 3 of 13 from the field, or either 3 of 11 or 3 of 13. I'm not reading my handwriting very well, but 1 of 9 for 3. I think the key for Arizona, and this is kind of go for every game, Caleb Love needs to go off, or at least not miss a ton of shots. 1 of 9 from 3 is not going to get it done for your team. If Arizona's going to be in this game, it's because Caleb Love makes 3, 4, maybe 5 threes, and is above 20 points, and they have to have that out of him to cover and have a chance outright. But I've got Duke advancing. I haven't played anything, but you might have talked me into the over a little bit because I do think Arizona will score and Duke should score. What's that Duke team total? Have you looked? I don't even know what the Duke team total is.
Well, the Duke team total, according to splitting it, what are we looking at? 80,
81
points. 80.5, 81. I mean, just to see Duke not score that many points against Arizona would be a little bit surprising because, if you look at the difference between Florida and UConn, Florida played a slow-paced UConn team who's somewhat efficient, so that's why I thought the over would hit there, especially for the team total. They still got to 77 points playing their worst game that they played in 2 months almost, maybe a month and a half since Georgia, right? So they still get to 77. Now, you're going to tell me an equal team like Duke's going to play someone who ranks 45th in average possession length is not going to get to 80 points. I think they easily get past the 80 points. I just wonder if Arizona can keep up, which here's the thing. Arizona cannot win a slow-paced game. They proved that against Houston. They proved that against Iowa State. They have to run and gun, right? Whether you take the variance out. If anybody's slowing it down, it's Duke. But here's the good news. You're sitting there and they score 82 points the first half, right? You're like, your ticket's going to be worth 174 points. That's when you take the over or the under and try to middle it in case you're blowout, right? That's when you grab the under and you say, okay, I'm taking half away this bet. Just in case, Duke completely slows it down to get to the next level, which is possible. But I just think, first half over looks good to me too, is what I'm trying to say. I think you have a couple ways of approaching it. So over.
Yeah. More I think about it, I think I like the team total for Duke over maybe even more, because you take away Flag missed 2.5 games in the ACC tournament. They scored 78, 74, and 73. But you eliminate those games where Flag, did not play, but whatever, 10 or 15 minutes the first half against Georgia Tech. If you eliminate those 3 games, they've scored 89, 93, 82, 93, 100, 97, 110, dating back to the Virginia game. And Virginia's slow pace. They had 80 that game. But before that, they had 106 against Stanford. So I think I talk myself into Duke's team total as long as it's 81.5 or fewer. And again, I'm not against your play of the over with both teams, and maybe I'll be on that as well.
Yeah, I think the team total is a great look too. You're going to maybe lay a little extra juice on it sometimes, and that's just how the books do it. They know where the money's coming. But it is about Caleb Love. I love what you said about them because, dude, he just sometimes falters when it comes to in the big games. He makes it all. He blows everyone away. It looks like one of the true players of the NCAA, and then he plays the bigger name and then loses and just has a bad game. So that's possible too, which is probably better for the team total over. I like the first half over a little bit too. I didn't take it yet. I'm gonna look at it a little bit more. Do they have halves out yet? Yeah, they do. First half, 72.5, minus 120 the over. So, yeah, I like the first half over as well. But, I've got plenty invested on that main over for Duke, Arizona.
I'm looking at these first halves. I'll be on Alabama minus 2.5 and Florida minus 3.5 or 4 in the first half as well. Now, those will be much smaller plays for me than the ones I have on the game, but I'll be getting a little taste of both of those favorites in the first half as well.
Makes sense to me. Arkansas, Texas Tech minus 5.5, total 146.5 at the Chase Center in San Francisco, California. So, the Hogs have been playing some expired ball. 5.5 is an interesting spread here. Now, there's a lot of talk that Thiero might come back. You've seen this game with Boogie Flan lately. It's funny to see a Cal because if you take Bill Self, Rick Pitino, and Coach Cal, you're taking Bill Self and Pitino, and all of a sudden, what does Cal do? Coach Cal comes in there and smokes them both, right? That is funny. I have some thoughts on this, but I'll let you run first.
Cal, by the way, was on McAfee today, and he said Thiero is going to play. He said he'd be on a minutes restriction. So, it sounds like he's going to play 12 to 20 minutes or 15, 20 maybe. I was all over Arkansas money line in these first 2 games. They're just playing lights out right now. And sometimes when teams get hot this time of year, and in both games last week, I specifically prefaced everything by saying I am well aware that I'm at an enormous coaching disadvantage against Bill Self and against Rick Pitino, but I still love Arkansas in both games. Now, I don't know that the coaching mismatches as dire, if you will, in this case, but just Arkansas is on fire right now, man. They are playing lights out. Just got some stats on that. Let's see. As I scroll down here. First off, their last 7 against teams that made the tournament, they're 6-1 outright. and there's regardless of who they're playing, they're 7-2 straight up in their last 9. In their last 15, they're 11-3-1 against the spread. But 2 of the non-covers were nonsense. One of them, they were 8.5 overnight and the morning of at A&M, and you could have had Arkansas plus 8.5. You had plenty of time to do that. Right before tip, it moves from 8.5, or it had moved to 8 already, and then moved to 7.5, and so it goes down as an L. But it really wasn't, in my opinion. And the push was nonsense in the tournament game against South Carolina as well. That was a winner for me. I think you had me on that weekend. I think had we both taken Arkansas the better line, if I'm remembering right. Anyhow, so and then in their last 10 as an underdog, Arkansas 8-2 against the spread, 5 outright wins, and Texas Tech 1-3 against the spread last 4, 5-8 last 13. And what's going on with Chance McMillian? He is questionable, averages 14.2 points, 4.1 rebounds per game, 43.4% shooter from 3, 88.2% from the free throw line. If he's unable to go again, that's a big deal. And I think Boogie Flan shook the rust off last week. He had a really good floor game, both games. He just wasn't, when your cardio's off, the shot is the last thing to come back. I think he'll play a lot better, at least shooting the ball. He had good floor games. In fact, I don't think he had a turnover in either game, if I'm not mistaken. But I like Arkansas here. I like them on the money line as well. But obviously, I'll be on them way more at the plus 5.5 compared to the plus 210 money line. But I'll have some of that as well.
Gosh, their mid-range shots were so good the last 2 games for the Hogs. They're just kind of doing those little 5 feet away, 8 feet away, just kind of run up and just toss it away. It was like, no, you can do about that. You can't stop that. It's going high enough to go over like a 7-footer, and it's going in. I mean, I noticed that with them. The weird thing about the Arrow is they've been playing so damn good without him. I almost feel like he should play. I don't know.
I hear you. And a lot of people said that about Flan, though. A lot of people said that about Flan coming back as well.
Yeah, I know, and it could be one or the other, or this could be all bullshit. I don't know. I don't know. It's just I feel like there's so much variance in this game because you've seen this team get floored before in stupid spots for Coach Cal, right? And then you got, I'm actually really worried about Survivor here because Texas Tech, I already used them in a few, and I'm in a Survivor where it's like you add up the seed points for the tiebreaker, and now with all these 1 seeds going, a lot of people are going to win. And if I pick Arkansas, I get 10 points. That's huge, and I did pretty well so far, but some pricks had Colorado State in a few, so I'm worried about that. Of course, I'm talking about myself again. I mean, the issue with Arkansas is inconsistency, and I guess it would be their depth, but their depth has taken a massive improvement here.
Right.
They've been playing some really good defense at times, and that's really what it is. It's like when these guys play defense, they look legit. They beat Michigan with a full team earlier this year, and Texas Tech shoots a lot of threes, and I think that they might have the advantage there and rebounding the ball. I feel like the Chance McMillian thing is you can use the same theory if he's coming back. Maybe this team plays a little worse too, but Chance McMillian has missed a lot less games. He's only missed the last 3 games and a couple earlier. Right. I think that if McMillian's playing, I think that Texas Tech wins this game. If he's not playing, I'm probably going to switch my Survivor play. But, dude, I just do not know what to do with this spread. I think you're taking the points, right?
Yeah.
I don't even like Texas Tech so much as a money line parlay anymore either. I kind of, after I broke this down a little bit and just noticed how well the Hogs are playing, mid-range game, they can play with speed. They can play without speed. It's just so much variance, in my opinion. These Hogs, man, they have talent there. They have a lot of talent that came with Cal, and it's finally showing up. What about Brazil? The dude that was supposed to be good years ago. He's finally showing up in the tournament too.
That's what I was gonna say. And another part of it was St. John's just missed a lot of shots they shouldn't have missed. But I think
2 from 23. 2 from 23 is St. John's.
Right.
So
I was talking more about in the paint. They missed a lot of shots, but I was going to give credit to Brazil and Adu's length is causing problems. Now that St. John's did miss just a couple bunnies, and obviously what you said, they're horrible from 3-point land. But I think part of that needs to be credit to Brazil. He's an explosive jumper, and him and Adu have tons of length. And they're not necessarily blocking a ton of shots, but they impact a lot of shots in the paint. And we saw St. John's was just could not buy anything. And Billy Richmond played great. And like you said, Arkansas's got a ton of talent, and they have caught fire at the right time. And Cal's got them believing. I think Cal's a terrible X's and O's coach, but he motivates and he gets ball players. And he's been on these March runs, and they're on one right now. And I think they advanced, but I understand your side of things because McMillian, he's such a vital cog to everything Texas Tech does. So anybody leaning at Texas Tech, I totally get not really even wanting to have an opinion until you get a little more clarity on his status, which we might not have until 10 minutes before tip.
Exactly. Chance McMillian's 3-point percentage is 43.4% this year. He's made 69 shots. I mean, out of 159. And it's not like Christian Anderson's not that bad behind him at 38.6%. But dude, you put Chance McMillian back in this game, they can play with anybody. And that's how I saw them beat Houston. It's like that's literally the handicap for me. And unfortunately, because of Arkansas playing so damn good lately, I'm worried about this game from a survivor aspect. I could get cute and dump one and go one Texas Tech and one Arkansas and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know what to do with this one. But I will tell everybody that Texas Tech is going to be a massive survivor play this week. And the reason that is because everyone's saving those 1 seeds and they want to get by with one more 3 seed. So just know that Texas Tech, Michigan State, maybe Tennessee, those are going to be the big survivor plays this week, and someone's going to get busted on that. So you could really move up a lot if you can get like an Arkansas, Kentucky, or something, or an Ole Miss. Let's move on to Friday. Speaking of Ole Miss, Brian, they are playing Michigan State, and it's back to 3.5, and I like it, my man. Totals 144.5 at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Sparty fans travel well, but this is a hell of a lot closer to home for Ole Miss, man. 332 miles away from campus to Atlanta. According to the metrics, Michigan State's got the better defense at 5th on Haslametrics to 22nd for Ole Miss, but the Rebels have a hell of a lot better offense, I think, and they're ranked 18th on Haslametrics. Sparty's in the 20s. I just do not see a lot of advantages for Michigan State because they can't hit a 3. They don't take a lot of 3s, but if you've been watching that, their first half unders have been so money lately, Brian, just because they've been not starting out cold. And like you saw against New Mexico State, they needed the refs and to hit a couple shots finally late to win that game. And I don't see those same advantages here against a lanky, scrappy Ole Miss team. Ole Miss, when they step up and they play well, man. Like I've seen them face Auburn a couple times. They took care of North Carolina easily. That score wasn't even as close as 71-64. That thing was over with 10 minutes left. They just dumped Iowa State. They're playing with damn good poise. The thing that they're not as good at is rebounding the ball. But you hope that home crowd kind of comes through for them. Their offense is flying like it has been. They've had the harder schedule than Michigan State, the much harder schedule. I like Ole Miss plus points, and I think they win the game, Brian.
I concur. Great head coaching matchup in this game. Definitely the best head coaching matchup of all these games. And I like Ole Miss too. I took them plus 650. I mean, obviously, I'm not getting the best of the number. I could have got it last week, and I actually did give it a little thought last week, just out of respect for Chris Beard. But anyway, I took them 650 to win the region. I haven't. I put a little bit on plus 145 money line. I'm kind of hanging around waiting to see if see if we maybe get this line to 4. I don't know if that'll happen. I hope it happens. But I like Ole Miss here. I just like how they're playing, and I love their coach. I absolutely love their coach. And, that's another team. I was talking about how Alabama was always okay. You look at Ole Miss. I mean, what's their worst loss this year? I mean, at Vandy or at Memphis? I mean, there's no shame in losing to those places. They just don't really have they don't have any like really concerning losses. And then they won at Arkansas. They won at Louisville by 23 points. They beat BYU out in San Diego. They beat Colorado State. They beat Bama on the road. I mean, they've got some high quality wins. They just beat Tennessee at home a couple of weeks ago. They beat Arkansas again on our neutral. And then I know Iowa State was, down probably their best player. But, and they handled them. I like Ole Miss here. I think they went out right. And I don't think Auburn wants to see them in the next round. We'll see.
Well, Ole Miss doesn't turn the ball over, which has been huge for them. They rank 3rd in turnover percentage on offense, and in non-steal turnovers, they're not screwing up, man. They're not just like shot clock violation and bad charging. They rank number 1 in non-steal turnover percentage. So that's like a really good plus for them. Plus, they do steal the ball. They rank 24th in steal percentage as well. So I think they're going to get some turnovers for Michigan State. Michigan State's not like a team that turns it over a ton, but they only rank 138th in all of the schools, in turning the ball over. So they do turn it over every, from time to time. And the problem with Michigan State is if they're behind, they rank 323rd in 3-point percentage. I mean, they only shoot 3-pointers 32% of the time, which is 329th in the nation. So they're not a good catch-up team, and that's kind of why, you like the under a little bit. My problem is Ole Miss will put on points. You see them, they didn't slow down against Iowa State. They kind of kept the pressure going throughout the last minute. So I am worried about the full game under. I think the first half under at 68.5, 69, shop around a little bit. Looks a little bit better for me, but I like you. I concur. I think Ole Miss at least covers the 3.5 or wins this game outright too. So that's my probably upset play, most obvious upset play. Let's say. Let's move to the next game. We have Kentucky versus Tennessee. Tennessee minus 4.5, 145.5 at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. What is your thoughts on this one?
I like Kentucky here. Now they have beaten Tennessee twice this year. They got them initially. They got them 75 to 64 as a 3.5 point. Actually, I think I went in reverse order. Yeah, no, the first time, January 28th, they beat them at Tennessee 78-73 as a 10.5 point dog, and then on February 11th they beat them 75-64 as a 3.5 point home dog. Kentucky's won 3 in a row over the Vols, and 5 of the last 6, both straight up and ATS. And I like how Kentucky is playing. I mean, I worry about Butler's shoulder, but he's just sucking it up and getting it done, and played really well in the win over Illinois. And Kentucky's fans are fired up. They have not been past the first weekend. I think since 19, if I'm not mistaken there. And so they will be out in full force in Indy. Kentucky has been an underdog 12 times this year, 8-4 against the spread, with 7 outright wins. And, this time of year, I worry about Tennessee's offense. I worry about them getting buckets. And I had a stat on Rick Barnes in the Sweet 16. What did I do with it? Oh, I think I put it in my article here.
You can come back to it. Why don't you come back to the stat?
Okay, well, I've got it and I'm done. So he, in 8 Sweet 16 games, he's only 4-4 and 1-2 in the last 3 at Tennessee, with last year being the exception when Creighton could not buy a bucket in the Sweet 16 last year against.
No,
so I like Kentucky.
And the Vols have the #1 defense, I guess, just depending upon which metrics you're looking at, in the nation. And that's how they get by, is that defensive play, because they can be really inconsistent. We're not playing those inferior teams. They can be in a lot of trouble. And like you said, I mean, I'm not one person that says third time the charm ever. Lucas Oil Stadium's a lot closer for Kentucky fans, 183 miles away to 357. For Tennessee, this is going to be maybe the most competitive game, I think, even more than Michigan State and Ole Miss in the tournament here. Kentucky, they just know how to play Tennessee. And you know what? Like you said, coaching is a big part of it. And sure, they shot 50% from 3 of the last 2 meetings. It's like you say, no, that's got to go down. Does it have to go down? I don't know. I think they just confused Kentucky really well based upon some of those, high ball screens, the pick and rolls. And they like to move the ball around a lot, and they don't rush things either at times. They also defend the 3 really well. Kentucky's a great perimeter defense. Now they tend to give it up a little bit more towards the rim, but if Tennessee's not hitting the 3 like they do sometimes, I think that Tennessee can be in a lot of trouble this game against a Cats team that can score. And it's just Lamont Butler for me. I'm betting Lamont Butler. I'm taking the 4.5. I'm betting Lamont Butler because he's been to the championship game with San Diego State. He's been to Final Fours. He also missed 9 regular season games. So a lot of people think that these stats are real in Kentucky, but I think Kentucky's better than their stats show because of Butler missing a lot of games.
I agree.
He slows down the ball. He's going to slow down the balls from deep. I know that. So if Kentucky's hitting some 3s, they're going to play with Tennessee and maybe beat them again. I took the points. I'll take the points here. Coasting mismatch. I'm betting on Mark Pope over Rick Barnes. That always makes you feel a little bit good coming into that game.
Yeah, I mean, I love Rick Barnes. He's had a hell of a career, but this time of year, it doesn't go well for him. And my Mark Pope stock rising by the day.
Absolutely. That is rising. And it's interesting for both how that worked out with Coach Cal leaving Kentucky and being in the Sweet 16, and Mark Pope coming in with nobody, having to kind of scramble this team together and making a Sweet 16. I find that like both fan bases better be freaking happy this year. Yep. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next game. Michigan versus Auburn. This is 9.5 now, dude. The total is 152.5 at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Dude, this spread's getting up there, man. I'll let you start on this one.
I hate this game. I want to go against Auburn again, but I had Creighton the other night, and it just burned me, and I thought I was going to win that. I was so confident in that game. And Auburn just kind of wore them down, and, they were still fortunate to win, and cover, or obviously fortunate to cover is what I meant to say, not win. But I mean, it's going to have to keep on moving for me to get there to the window for Michigan. It's going to have to get to like 11, and I don't think it's going to do that. Now, if Auburn get off to a fast start, but I feel like Michigan's like getting good shots and just like not making them or something, maybe I'd look to get involved live with Michigan, as a double-digit dog. Maybe. I'm not going to commit to that. But right now, this game's a pass for me. I want to go against Auburn. They are so not playing their best basketball. But here they are, right where they wanted to be at the start of the season. So maybe they can flip a switch. I guess they sort of did in the second half the other night, or just I don't know what happened to Creighton. It just they quit making shots. This is what happened, actually. But I don't like the game right now.
Well, it's in Atlanta, too. 190 miles away from home. Michigan fans will have to travel, but it's not like we haven't seen that before. I see the Tigers, they've been on they go on some runs sometimes in games, right? When you think that, just like Creighton, but Creighton does that to you. But just when you think that the game's close, the Tigers pull away. Michigan plays pretty fast, but their defense and rebounding is why they're here. The big problem is that they turn the ball over, and you're probably going to hear that on radio stations. It's a pretty common stat for Michigan. 19.6% of their possessions are turnovers. Auburn's a good fast break team, and they can pile points on. They can steal the ball. They go in big runs, like I mentioned before. But you kind of got the fact that Michigan can get flustered by losing the ball, and then you have the crowd just screaming at, yelling, happy for Auburn. That could just really pile on Michigan. But dude, I'm not gonna lie, this spread is starting to get out of hand. My number's 8, where it close to opened. I was kind of like, that's a pretty good line. I was like looking at Michigan with the Twin Towers. I'm like, nah. But now it's getting at 9.5, dude. I think Auburn wins, but man, I mean, that's a sus line right there at 9.5, and Michigan wins all of their freaking super close games, man. I don't know what's been going on with that. I mean, you think they're due for regression. You know what? Every game is mutually exclusive. You don't know what they're due for at all. I think Auburn wins the game, and just like you, I think that Auburn's been inconsistent lately and had a rough end to the year. So it's like it's hard to bet Auburn right now. So,
right.
And
they've been overvalued for months.
I agree, and they still hit in some of those situations, even overvalued. That's what you got to sniff out for this time of year, though. It's almost like it makes you want to jump on Michigan. Well, I'm going to watch this spread. I mean, give me a 10 for sure, a solid 9.5 instead of a juiced one, maybe. I'll be watching this one.
One other point on this game that I didn't really think of, and again, it's like when I was kind of taking some subtle shots at Cal, but then I'll compliment him when he can motivate and get players. Pearl can motivate and get players with the best of them, but X's and O's advantage in the head coaching department, big time toward Michigan.
Dusty May. Yep, that's true. And Dusty May's been to the Final Four with Florida.
Yes, he has.
So there you are. He's been there. Lean Michigan plus 9.5 for now, but I do have Auburn in this stupid parlay I'm going to tell you about in a few minutes. Purdue versus Houston. Houston -8. Total 132.5 at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. It's Purdue or Purdue. That is the question with this spread, man. Here's the thing. Even though it's 65 miles away, Houston's just too big inside, for Purdue, and Purdue can go on droughts, and Houston's defense is just swarming around the perimeter, and that's where Purdue tries to live with those 3-point shooters. Don't get me wrong; they cannot be open. I mean, Houston cannot screw up and allow, Fletcher Lawyer to be hitting like that. They cannot allow Braden Smith to be hitting. That's really what it is. You can't. Fletcher Lawyer shoots 45.1%, but these aren't like chintzy Big Ten teams that he's been running through, like USC and Rutgers and Indiana and Washington and Nebraska. I mean, this is a serious team that can defend the perimeter. They rank, Houston ranks 25th in 3-point percentage allowed, 5th in 2-point percentage. Their defense is number 1 on KenPom. I expect everything to come hard for Purdue. It's not going to be nearly as easy as when Purdue just faced 2 easy teams. What a nice little red carpet, Brian, to the Final Four. Freaking High Point McNeese. God, I want, as a Badger fan, I wanted that 4 seed, man. Are you kidding me? I'd trade that in a second. Have to play freaking 6 BYU. Jesus, man. I would have made that trade in a minute. But of course, you needed McNeese to beat Clemson, but I didn't believe in Clemson. Dude, this is I laid the points with Houston. I laid 7.5, though. I didn't lay 8. I'm thinking about a first half under, too, because Houston's just going to slow it down, and I don't think Purdue's going to be able to score. But I am a little worried that Houston is going way up to close to the Midwest, a different court. Maybe the full game under is not bad. So I'll lean first half under 62.5 for now, but I laid a better number than it's at right now because it's getting close to 8.5 now, Brian. It's like on DraftKings, it's 8.5 minus 102. There's probably 8s out there, so I'll call it 8.
Yeah, I could, you pointed it out. I mean, Purdue's interior defense is is really weak, and that concerns me. But look, if Smith and Lawyer, if they can get them open for some good looks and they can hit some shots early, who knows? Right now, it's a pass for me. I mentioned Felica had a stat on Purdue that grossed me out and made me not want to take them when I was leaning their way initially. And I'm probably gonna lay off this one. Let's see what time slot they're in the same time. Oh, they're in the same time slot with Michigan and Auburn. I may just pass on both of those. Hopefully, win both early games on Ole Miss and Kentucky, and just enjoy some cocktails at the bar the rest of the night.
There you go. I mean, enjoy it. Maybe do a personal little fun play if you're up. You have a lot of things you can do with that. If I had to do anything with these numbers, I would take the under in Michigan plus 9.5. That's what I would do and see what happens. The under on Houston and Michigan plus 9.5, and enjoy it with some popcorn. I will say Michigan's been feisty. They'll be losing by a lot and come back, or they'll be winning by a lot and go down. It's just so weird with that team. But that brings us to the let's do beer bet bangers before NFL draft. It's funny. I actually thought that I'm going to do it. I've been 1 seeds the whole way, Brian. And so I parlayed them together. And you know what? I don't know if this is a square play or not, but the truth is I got plus 175. I just need Duke, Auburn, Houston, and Florida to win. But dude, I mean, I see these are big spreads for a reason. Every team they're playing is sus. I mean, you get down to that Houston game, and unfortunately is tipped up at the same time, but you may be able to hedge it later after the second half, if Auburn's blowing out Michigan, and you can maybe hit both ways. And Purdue's probably going to be a dog all the way until the end of the game unless they're winning, but I don't see Purdue winning against Houston. Purdue does not have the inside game. This is not the Zach Edey team that we remember. Houston is probably very motivated too. I took plus 175 on a 1-seat parlay. That's my beer bet banger.
All right, here we go. I'll go with Florida, a three-leg parlay. Florida and Alabama on the first day, and then Kentucky. I in the parlay I bought it to 5 from 4.5 at minus 120, and it's still a plus 263 payout. And it is the next day. If you wanted to hedge, I mean, you could. I would just let it roll on the plus 260. I'm just reminded that I have a parlay hanging with Arkansas from Ole Miss plus 5 and Colorado State plus 8 last Sunday. That's a little 6-1 action. Forgot about that one. As I'm looking at my pending wagers. If you want to parlay or reverse Florida and Arkansas with the points, not money line, I'm all for that. But yeah, Florida, Alabama money line within Kentucky plus 5. I like that. There's my beer bet banger. Plus 263 to be exact with the prices I got.
All right, good stuff, man. I agree. And I also like Ole Miss to win outright too, as we both mentioned that. We both think that's good money there. I think it's a really, truly coin flip game here. And, Michigan State has not been overly impressive to me this year. So NFL draft, have you looked at the NFL draft? It's funny. I did some looking this today after I got done with all the NCAA games, and there's not a lot of stuff out there. There's not a lot of odds out there yet. And, I think the books might be just a little bit extra careful here. But, I mean, do you think Cam Ward goes first in the draft? I think it's a stupid move if he does.
Yeah, I like Shedeur Sanders better than Cam Ward. I'm looking at the odds right now. Certainly, by the look of the odds, it certainly seems as if Cam Ward is going to go number 1. And remind me who has the number 1 pick, which I should obviously know.
Tennessee Titans. And
that's right.
The Titans can really blow this. What's funny, and I agree with you, because Shedeur Sanders, as many headaches that could come with a Deion Sanders, kid, you have a high floor. There's no way Deion's going to let his kid be a bust. The kid's not going to be a bust. He stepped up in every situation he has. This Colorado team was a freaking mess when Deion took over, dude. It sucked. And actually, they were somewhat formidable this year. You know, and don't get me wrong, Hunter, and so is some of the other, Holt or whatever his name is over there. They've had some good receivers there, but it also takes a good quarterback to make the receiver look good. I think Sanders is a name for a Tennessee team, right? If you're in Tennessee and a smaller market, you want a star, you want a Sanders. I think it's a safer bet for them. And you know what? Them blowing another quarterback opportunity, it's like you wait forever to have the opportunity for a number 1 pick. Look at how bad you were with Will Levis the year before. At least you got him in the second round. But Jesus, now you have your pick of the litter. Levis is a bust. And you're going to go with a Cam Ward that I think his floor is as low as what was that other Tennessee quarterback that they got from Liberty? I forgot his name. Willis.
Malik Willis. Yeah.
It's almost like Cam Ward could be Malik Willis. Cam Ward played with the highest paid college players, man. Miami spent so much freaking money, and that ACC last year was freaking terrible, bro.
Yes.
Freaking terrible. And you're going to tell me that Cam Ward is a sure number 1 freaking quarterback? Hell no. Now, the problem is my thoughts doesn't match GM's thoughts, and that's how I lose in the draft is I think that, you shouldn't do this, but they do this, And Ashton Genty, go ahead.
I was just going to say, betting the draft, you can be right, but you can lose your bet because some asshole GM is the one that's wrong. And so, I like Shedeur better than Cam Ward. Now, I'm not saying go bet Shedeur because I don't know what the Titans front office is thinking, and I worry about Cam Ward taking punishment in the NFL. Shedeur's a big boy, and he has proven that he has no fear in that pocket. He hangs in. He got beat to hell and back that first year and didn't miss a game until the regular season finale because he had an internal, he had internal injuries from the week before, and didn't miss any games this past year. I don't think. And he's as accurate a college passer as I've seen in a long time. I love everything about Shedeur. And I think a lot of this pre-draft talk, it might just be a bunch of smoke. People might just be throwing all this smoke out there to make other teams think they don't like Shedeur when they really love him. So, but I'm not saying to bet Shedeur, although I see FanDuel's got him 40-1 to go number 1 and Travis Hunter 34-1. I've been locked into March Madness, so I haven't been really paying attention to I haven't been watching any NFL Network lately, so I don't know what all the chatter is about, but clearly the thoughts are it's going to be Abdul Carter or Cam Ward. But anyway, Hunter and Shedeur Sanders will not be far behind. So we'll see. But I don't have a bet I'm recommending.
If it was Vrabel, maybe he would pick Abdul Carter. I don't think that this regime is. Yeah, I mean, Shedeur Sanders is one hell of a 35-1 favorite. The only bet I made was Shedeur at 5 or 6-1 at a terrible number, back in December or January or something. I made it, and I made it because I was I think that Shedeur makes sense, so it might flip, but instead it got way worse. I have the same problem with Ashton Genty, Brian. I saw him play against Penn State, and I know Penn State's an above-average actually a very good defense. But still, 3.5 yards per carry. And the reason he hit 100 yards is because they forced it to happen. Instead of caring about winning the game, they handed the freaking ball off to Genty 4 or 5 times in a row at the end, just so he could get 100 yards. I mean, that's nice of Boise State to make sure he gets 100 yards every game. But the truth is that Boise State was a very good Power 5 team playing in one of the worst defensive freaking conferences I've ever seen in the Mountain West last year. I mean, San Jose State, dude, the Air Force was down. San Diego State was more of an offensive team. This was the worst defenses I've ever seen. And then you see him, finally go against a decent. I know he played Oregon, and Oregon was whipping him by a ton by that anyway. But he finally plays a good defense and doesn't do much. That makes me wonder, what would he do in the SEC if he was played for, the Vols or the Gators or Ole Miss or something? What would he be like? What would he be like? I think Quinshawn Junkins is better than him. He's small. Ashton Genty's small. I know he can catch the ball. He's got powerful legs, but dude, he's like an Austin Eckler to me, man, which is good. Don't get me wrong. Eckler's good. But he's not like a first-round draft pick. I don't think any of these running backs should be picked in the first round. I think that they're all bunched up together, dude. I really think that. The guy from Iowa was really good. You know?
Yeah.
Was it Johnson?
Yeah, Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson.
Dude.
Cam Scatteraboo.
Scatteraboo's awesome. He's a leader. I think wasting a first-round pick on a running back would be absolutely stupid. And the Bears or the Raiders are going to do it. So, unfortunately, my team is probably going to do it.
I think Shedeur could end up with the Raiders if he's still around. They're 7th, right? Don't they pick 7th? I think. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Shedeur Sanders. It could end up on the Raiders. It's funny that they wanted Geno Smith there. And don't get me wrong, Geno Smith has been better than I thought, but he's not like the Super Bowl winner. I mean, he's keeping guys together. I guess Seattle was tired of his shit. But going to Sam Darnold? Dude, I got Geno probably better than Sam Darnold because Sam Darnold had a damn good coach last year. I think Sam Darnold showed his true colors when the playoffs almost happened the week before and just shit the bed. He looked terrible.
Yeah.
And that's what you don't pay guys for the regular season. You pay them for the playoffs. If you can't do it in the playoffs, you're not worth anything. I don't know. I'll get anybody in the regular season if you have a good system like Brian Johnson's system, like O'Connell's system, like Kyle Shanahan's system. Any of these quarterbacks can look good. We've seen it. It just blows my mind that they want Geno, but okay. I guess.
Yeah, I don't know what Seattle's doing. I mean, I'm okay with them getting rid of Geno, but I think the Raiders plan on
for an upgrade. I don't know what either team's doing there, but I think they're just delaying, like you said. So I could see Shedeur going to the Raiders. So it's a good call by you, but we'll see what's real and what's not when it comes to the NFL draft, my man. And what's also real is Mr. Brian Edwards over at Major Wager and Vegas Insider. Brian, tell our listeners where they can get your great information and media.
On Twitter at VegasBEdwards. My content on Major Wager, my picks on Vegas Insider. And I can assure you that actually, I was going to say, if Texas Tech wins, I'm sure I'll be betting Florida again in the Elite Eight. I don't know that I would lay a big number to Arkansas, though. Those boys are hot. I was just trying to think ahead to the next round. I would love I know Ole Miss got lost by double digits to Auburn twice, but they played them tough in the SEC tournament, and those boys are hot right now. And if they get by Sparty and play Auburn, I could get on board with I don't think they would be catching double digits, but if they're catching 7.5, 8, I could be looking for them in the South Region Finals. And if Kentucky or Tennessee's catching a big number to Houston, that might be an underdog look as well. We'll see. That's going to be a war between Kentucky and Tennessee. We'll see how those teams come out looking. But, thanks for having me, Kev, as always. Enjoyed it. And happy March. And good luck to all of us, your listeners and me and you this weekend.
Let's go this weekend. Make sure you guys check out Mr. Brian Edwards.